Why should I leave the country? It was all Sarah's fault that your money was seized, so why must I be the scapegoat? I said in frustration as I was losing the argument for the past 15 minutes. It's just to divert their attention to you. It's just temporary arrangements, and besides, your account is clean, so they'll never find out. Martha tried to calm me down while explaining. Of course my accounts are clean. I didn't embezzle with money, you guys did, I replied in anger. My name is Glenn Carter, and the woman I'm arguing with is my elder selfish stepsister Martha. She did some nasty work behind our father's company name that she inherited and ended up embezzling money with her girlfriend and accountant Sarah. She had hidden the money in some offshore account, but somehow the words got out this and she got in trouble. As you may have figured out, I had nothing to do with any of this. I was a simply normal, boring employee of this company. I knew nothing. But one day, she invited me to her house and dropped a bombshell that I would be taking the downfall for her. The offshore account she created was in my name, so she planned to put all the blame on me while I would be in another country, and as soon as the matter calms down, she would call me back and transfer all the money to herself. I knew no matter what I had to say, she would still do as she pleased, but I still tried and failed in keeping my argument. She planned to send me to South Africa after a week, and I had to come up with a plan to save myself within that time duration. As father predicted before his death, our family should have been a happy one after him transferring his assets to the wise, beautiful, and kind daughter, instead of his worthless son. Maybe Martha was happy with her partner and all the money she had got, but she as hell wasn't letting me be happy. Still, I wasn't that bad of a brother, so I thought I should talk to her once before giving in to her demands. It was Tuesday evening when I drove to her house, hoping to have a nice, friendly conversation with May, or maybe not end up with her accepting her mistake and owning up to it. When I reached, I noticed Sarah's car was already parked there. I thought it was a good thing, and I would talk to both of them about our problem. As I was about to ring the doorbell, I heard a faint argument sound coming from inside the house, so I decided to go in from the back door. I still had the spare key that my father had given me when he was still alive, and this was his house after all. What is the proof that I had any hand in this? It was my sister's voice coming from her bedroom. I sneaked past it and hid while eavesdropping on their argument. Oh, trust me, there is. But if you were willing to give me 60% of that, I would destroy that evidence, Sarah said with a confident smirk on her face. You are my lover. Isn't it obvious I would share everything with you? She grabbed her arm and said in an irritated tone, Please, Martha, say these things to someone who doesn't know you. If you could set up your brother, you could betray anyone. By the way, does your brother know that the account that's made in his name only has 10% of the amount that you embezzled, and that the moment he would step foot on the airport, he would get arrested? She pulled away her hand while saying that. I couldn't believe my sister was ready to dump it all on me to save her skin. I was about to burst in, but that was when the fight started getting nasty, and I saw Martha pick up this candlestick and just wail at her. She went down pretty hard. She was just standing over her with this look in her eyes. It scared the hell out of me, so I got out of there. The next morning, I left for the police station and told them about the money stashed in my name on that offshore bank account, including everything about Martha and Sarah. I was held there and questioned for hours, but it was better than being the scapegoat for her. When I was at the police station, I got a call from Martha, which I did not pick up, and the moment they were done with the questioning, they let me go. Martha was called in for questioning, but she kept denying having any illegal money. They also tried to call Sarah and even searched her home, but she was nowhere to be found. I was 100% sure that this had something to do with what I saw last night, but if I were to reveal that, I would have to give up the keys I had, and then I won't be able to sneak in to search for clues, so I kept my mouth shut about that. As I saw Martha each time with that relieved look on her face, I could only think that she was a conniving little skunk for ignoring completely the feelings of guilt and shame for killing Sarah, who was also her lover. I could not believe how someone could be this greedy to not even have an ounce of remorse and regret within her. Police found some details of Sarah leaving the country and an account in her name that had millions of dollars in it. For some reason, I found it odd that they found it so soon, and even weirder that Martha's name got cleared. No, seriously, they couldn't find a single penny in her name, so she got out of it pretty easily. But I knew she was hiding something. All I had to do was find out what it was. One day, when I was sure that Martha would be working late, I took the spare keys I had and went to her place. But I was surprised to see that they weren't working. I tried multiple times, but the keys did not work at all. So I looked carefully at them, thinking if I grabbed the wrong ones in a hurry. And that's when I heard, "Oh, don't worry, there are no problems with your keys. I just changed the locks. You know, you really should lock the door behind you if you were sneaking around," she said with an evil smile on her face. I told her that I knew she was hiding something and she had killed Sarah. She smiled at me and dropped another bombshell. "Did you think that was all the money I had? My scapegoat was decided months ago. If not you, then her. Just the circumstances weren't exactly what I had in mind." I looked at her dumbfounded while she walked inside the house. It wasn't the sister I played with during my childhood, nor was this the daughter my father was so proud of. The woman I was watching was some selfish, greedy, unhappy bitch who I was sick and tired of. I was playing a part in her life, so I walked away with the intention of leaving this cursed place and starting fresh somewhere else.
Hey guys, thanks so much for all the support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please feel free to do so.
My name is Megan, and I recently joined this PR company as an assistant editor for a magazine. At first, I did not have anyone to talk to because I did not know anyone here and was pretty shy. But now, my team members are like best friends to me. Last week, some of the chosen employees, including all the seniors in my department, went on a trip. And since there was no one to supervise us, we had so much fun working in an entirely comfortable environment. But that comfort wasn't for long. 3 days went by just like this, and it was finally the day when everyone was to return from the trip. The workload had suddenly increased, and everyone got scolded for slacking off for the past 3 days. We all got called one by one and were asked about our progress report. After that, we were assigned more work as a punishment. I went back to work, and we only focused on work and nothing else. Trust me, I was regretting slacking off more than anyone because I had classes on weekends. The next day when I reached the office, the manager had called everyone from the fashion team in and was angry about something. "What's going on?" I whispered to Carl while sitting at my desk. "Someone mailed a complaint about physical harassment," he leaned over and said. "Who?" I asked again. "That I don't know." He shrugged his shoulders while saying that. "I know it was the part-timer Rasta. Nick from the fashion department tried to force himself on her Friday evening and did not even bother checking if the camera was off or not. It was Carrie, the Asian girl who used to sit next to me. We never talked much, but she sometimes passed me a smile or two." "So what now? Aren't they going to fire him?" I asked. "Of course, everyone saw the footage and he's already fired. It's the guy who helped him lure Rasta into the cabin. He is refusing to know Nick's intentions, but I know he is lying because I know he is a complete jerk, and even though he is married to a beautiful girl, he still tries to get comfortable with other girls from his department," he said in a disgusted tone. We noticed our team leader walking in, and we quietly went back to focus on our work. The next day, we heard that the guy who helped Nick was declared innocent by the manager, and he had started a rumor about Rasta that she was the one who seduced Nick first. Even though everyone had already seen the footage in which it looked clear that Nick trapped her and harassed her, they still gossiped about it and started to avoid the poor girl. We thought it would calm down within a few days, but that bastard just started to put more fuel into the fire by cooking up false rumors about her. Day by day, she started to look thin and weak, and finally, one day, she committed suicide. Everyone who used to gossip about her suddenly went silent after hearing this news because they were all to blame. And now, they started to talk about that shit of a man who spread the false rumors. I looked at all of them with disgust, watching how soon they changed their colors. 3 days after Rosta's death, when I was exiting the office building, I saw Nick arguing with that bastard. It looked like Nick was sick or something, because by looking at him, anyone could tell that he must be suffering from some chronic illness. I tried listening to their conversation, but could only hear Nick saying, "Please, help me. She will kill me if you don't." "Dude, the girl's already dead. How's she gonna kill you?" he replied, and went ahead after pushing Nick, which made him fall. I guess he must be feeling guilty because Rosta died because of him. I did not want to feel sympathy toward him, so I went my way. The next day, I heard the news that Nick was found dead in his apartment, and when they found him, his body was in a very bad state. It was curled up and frozen. When I reached the office, the first face I saw was that bastard Pedro. His face looked pale. I guess Nick's death may have something to do with this. The same day as I was exiting the company, I noticed him standing frozen and staring midair. It felt weird to me, so I thought of going ahead to ask if he was okay, but that was when I felt a hand over my shoulder. "Don't bother. It's all karma that's getting back to these shitheads. Why don't we go and have some coffee?" It was Carrie. I looked at her and realized what she said was true. And why should I feel sorry for them when they are the ones causing all of this? "Not coffee. Let's just go for drinks," I said, and she agreed while laughing. The next day at work, when I went to the bathroom, I noticed it was locked from the inside. I tried opening it, but no matter how hard I tried or banged on the door, it did not open, nor did someone respond from inside. I dejectedly went to the bathroom on the first floor where that annoying shit used to work. But when I got there, I did not notice him anywhere. After coming back from the bathroom, I started working again. And after several minutes, we heard someone scream from the direction of the bathroom. We went running there and saw Carrie standing at the gate, and the gate was finally opened. Carrie looked panicked, and she was pointing inside the bathroom. We went closer to see what she was pointing at, but as soon as we saw, we all got shocked and terrified at the same time. Pedro was lying dead on the floor, and his body looked all curled up and frozen. It was in the same condition as Nick's body. That was when all of a sudden I remembered that I heard Nick and Pedro arguing outside the building. Pedro was saying, "Rosta's already dead. How would she kill you? Do you think her ghost will come after you? Stop talking nonsense and get lost."
I worked at Target in around 2010. It was a cool job. All I had to do was sit around, do the paperwork, and other things people do. I was the manager at the Target, and I got hooked up as a manager because my cousin had a good relation with the store owner. I was around 25 when I got the job, and I had no experience prior, so getting that job was a privilege, and I very well knew it. So I was one of those managers who worked too much, even though there was less physical work to do, but I was knee-deep in all the paperwork. The thing with Target is that it is a big store, and the thing with big stores is that it comes with a large number of annoying people. Target is a big store, and a day don't go by that there's not some lady or middle-aged man flipping out over the products. It was one headache that we constantly had to go through, and even though we were not allowed to really be aggressive to customers, there are times when you want to do things to them that you cannot really do. But there isn't much you can do than just sit and listen and solve whatever issue they are having. It is tough, but it is something that we have to do in order to make it better. One day, things were very hectic at the store, and it was then that things got out of hand with one of the customers. Things were as usual as they always were, and the store was busy. The chaos was being managed just fine, and when we thought things cannot be weirder, they did, spiraling into a chaotic shitfest when suddenly an angry customer wanted a refund. And we told him about the refund policy, but he just won't admit that he was at the wrong one here, and we had no choice but to call in security. He wanted to talk to me, and I told him there was no way that we could do anything about the thing, and he was quite aggressive about it and demanded to see me. I got out, and then he told me, "You better give me my refund or it's going to be really bad for you. I will make sure you shit bricks for the rest of your lives." I looked at him and I said, "Sir, our refund policy is a bit different, and the product you brought in has been used like multiple times. We cannot really refund you your money, but if you want us to replace your product, we can happily do that." And the man looked furious and said, "I want my money, dumb bitch." And I told him that it cannot possibly be done. He told me that he will come back for me and teach me a lesson. Now, it wasn't the first time that I was being told that my life is in danger, but then it wasn't the first time that someone said that they will kill me. But this time, the man was bigger than anyone I have seen, and his eyes were red as the sky during sunset. He was accompanied out of the store by the police. I wasn't really scared by the man. More like this time it felt like it was more real than before. And this time, it felt like the warnings were somehow real. As the police accompanied him away from the store, I could see his red eyes filled with anger and hate looking right at me, as if he wants to kill me. I called in the inspector in the evening asking whether the man was released from the prison, and the policeman said, "We had nothing against him. He did not really commit a crime, he was just being an asshole. We don't really put people in jail if they are assholes." I said, "He wanted to kill me. I think you should have kept him in the prison." The policeman replied with a chuckle. He was probably coked out of his mind. He probably doesn't remember you, and secondly, if he does, don't worry. We will arrest him before he kills you. Now, the way he talked all sarcastic and wise-ass, I didn't think that the police will be much help when the guy comes in and tries to kill me in the store. I was slowly getting paranoid by all of it. There was something about the rage in this guy, and I could see. I was having flashbacks of his eyes with volcanic anger. I was scared for my life. Moreover, I was scared, what if he finds out where I live? It will be so much easier for him to just come in and strangle me while I was vulnerable. I wasn't sure about this guy, and he was easily in my head this time completely. I made sure that I am not being followed. The first thing I did was buy a taser. I did not want to be defenseless if he approaches me. I wasn't the one to be fooled around with. I was thinking of buying a gun before, but that would be too irrational of a response. Now that I think of it, every response that I had was irresponsible. I remember having nightmare about the guy confronting me in the parking and killing me. It's like never before. It was the Monday morning, and all my weekend had been spent thinking about what if the man confronts me? What will I do, and how will I defend myself? So I was a bit cranky and anxious the Monday morning into work. I stepped out of my car where it was parked and went about my day. The day went calm and easy, and there was no angry man spotted, and surprisingly, the Monday went by easy. There was no confrontation this Monday, and things went smooth. So I was a bit relaxed, and there was no sign of that big man anywhere. And then, as I was moving to the parking lot as the day was ending, and I was getting back after closing in the shop and getting done with all the accounts and paperwork, I saw the light flickering the parking, and it was just me and the other car in the parking lot. I did not know who it was. I looked at it, and I was a bit nervous, and there was this eerie feeling that I had that something wrong is about to happen. And then I slowly approached my bag and took the taser in my hand. I had that feeling that somebody was standing over me. I looked back, and I saw the same old man standing tall right behind me, and before he can do or say anything, I reacted with the fight or flight reaction, but instead of running, I stood my ground and I tased him, and as I tased him, he fell. And as he was getting down, I could see the flowers dropping out of his hands, and I was realizing that I had acted too fast. I saw the man picking up, trying to get back to his senses, and then looked at me and said, Well, fair enough. Guess we are even. I'm sorry for my behavior earlier. I apologize. And then handed me the flower and told me to give it to the staff. And I asked him if he's alright and apologized for tasing him. Well, good thing I am not worried about him killing me anymore, for he knows that the tables can turn on him too.
Firstly, I'd like to begin with a little bit of background to explain why this particular case is so personal to me. For the past 6 years, I've worked as a college campus police officer. We're a branch of law enforcement that doesn't get very much publicity or attention from the general public, but we're just as much law enforcement as any other branch. Policing college campuses is pretty much all I've ever known, too, because before I trained to be a regular cop, I worked as a campus security officer, which, trust me, was considerably easier than doing any actual police work. But it was also considerably more boring, too. If I'm being honest, I thought it would consist of breaking up crazy parties, rescuing hot sorority girls from whatever jam they gotten themselves into, maybe even getting a few compliments that are usually directed at a guy in uniform, but nope. All my job consisted of was walking around campus for like 8 hours a day, just making sure buildings were secure and that the right doors were locked. On top of that, I had very little training and basically no means of defending myself whatsoever. I was constantly worrying about what I'd do if I'd actually ran into any serious criminal activity, but luckily I never did. But I can't say the same for some other campus security guards, and that's pretty much the whole reason I'm writing this up. Okay, so Virginia Wesleyan University is a small Methodist college in Norfolk, Virginia, with a total population of less than 1,500 students, and back in 2006, it was even smaller than it is now. It's located near Virginia Beach in the Hampton Roads area of the state, which actually has a relatively high crime rate, but the college itself is pretty safe, and historically there's been very little in the way of trouble there. It's kind of like a little green island of bliss in the middle of an urban concrete sea, and the students that attended rarely say anything bad about it except around exam times. Back in 2006, it didn't have anything resembling a campus police force. Now, almost all American colleges have an attachment of uniformed police to keep them safe. But back then, Wesleyan only employed a small number of unarmed security officials to keep the peace. And one of these was a guy named Walter Zakshevsky, known as Wally or Officer Wally among his colleagues in the student body. Wally was actually from Chicago to begin with, but after joining the U.S. Navy and spending a good chunk of his military career down in Norfolk, it became kind of a home away from home. I know his wife is from the area and the pair moved back to Chicago after he got out of the military, but at 57, when Wally got laid off from a steel industry job in the Windy City and got sick to death of the weather, the couple moved back down to Virginia and Wally took up a job as a campus security officer at Wesleyan University. Wally has absolutely no experience in security or law enforcement, but I'm guessing the college didn't mind that since he was ex-military and was therefore seen as being disciplined and reliable. He started in July of 2006, and what followed was basically 3 months of on-the-job training in which Wally came to love his new job. His only real complaint was how hot and humid the campus could be in the summer months, but he grew to love the student population, who viewed him as a kind of warm, friendly guardian-type figure, someone they could trust and rely on in their time of need. Then, on October 11th of that same year, Wally was getting ready for his evening shift patrolling the campus. He was wearing his regular uniform consisting of a blue dress shirt, black pants, and a duty belt containing the usual security-type tools and gadgets, handcuffs, baton, flashlight, radio, but most certainly no firearm. Many of the other security staff at the college carried pepper spray, but Wally wasn't authorized to carry any because of how new on the job he was. It had recently been his and his wife's 34th wedding anniversary, so the pair were particularly in love around that time, so he made sure to give her hugs and kisses before he headed off to work that evening. According to the records from that night, everything seemed pretty uneventful. It was just a regular shift on the sleepy college campus. Just before 10 p.m., Wally apparently made a radio call to the campus security headquarters, informing them that he was about to undertake a routine building check. Security staff regularly checked in with headquarters so that clerks working there could make notes on their movements and activities, but after that call, Wally didn't check in again. This was undoubtedly unusual. It certainly wasn't like Wally to miss a radio check, so officials back at headquarters assumed that there had been some kind of radio malfunction, such as a loss of signal. This was their final conclusion, too. Not that something bad might have happened, so no police were called, and no other members of the security team were sent to check anything out. Wally's evening shift was due to end at 11 p.m., and he usually arrived back at headquarters for a debrief shortly before his shift was due to end so he could properly hand over to the next guy on duty. But that night, Wally never arrived back at headquarters. Almost a half hour went by and there was still no signs of Wally, and it still proved impossible to get in touch with him via the radio network. Naturally, his colleagues began to worry, and a handful of security officers took off around campus to try and find him. One of these officers was the shift commander, a guy called Vic Dorsey. Dorsey was checking out the Boy Dining Center at around 11:30 p.m. when a grisly sight greeted him near the entrance. Wally was unconscious, lying in a pool of his own blood, having received multiple stab wounds around his arms and torso. Someone had evidently violently attacked him, and while Wally seemed to have attempted to pull out his baton to defend himself, he simply didn't stand a chance. Head of campus security said that when he got the call shortly after Dorsey had found Wally's body, all he needed to hear was the man's tone of voice to know the worst had occurred. Dorsey only managed to get out one word out before he burst into tears. Wally. Virginia Beach police were called in, who immediately took over the investigation into Wally's murder. One of the first things they did was to confiscate knives from anyone on campus who happened to be carrying on for whatever reason. Even the head of campus security was considered a suspect for the time being, and was made to hand over the small utility knife he kept on his keyring, despite the fact that he wasn't actually present on campus at the time of the murder. Virginia Beach Police Department also demanded that every member of the security team, as well as all other employees on campus, get down to the local department for interviews and polygraph tests. Every single member of the security team seemed only too keen to cooperate with the investigation, all except one, who apparently turned down the polygraph tests out of medical and religious reasons. As a result of lack of witnesses, clues, and CCTV footage, the investigation came up short pretty soon after it was opened up. But I'm hoping my own little analysis will be able to jog someone's memory or convince someone to come forward. Someone must know something. Someone must have seen something. Heck, even if it's the person that actually killed Wally, they should just man up, do the right thing, and admit what they did so we can all get a little closure. I mean, I did Wally's job, and that legit could have been me out there that night, stabbed to death securing a building from someone that just shouldn't have been there, and that thought alone is enough to give me chills. Personally, I have one main theory that I think explains what happened to Wally that night. Given that the encounter was outside of the dining center where students spend a fair amount of cash on their lunches and other sweet treats, a thief may have believed that there might well have been a great deal of cash left in the building overnight. He probably saw Wally, recognized the uniform, then attacked in the knowledge that Wally probably wouldn't be carrying any kind of firearm. The college itself might have been considered an easy target for any kind of serious criminal who might have known that there was very little in the way of security presence there. Yet there was absolutely no sign of any kind of break-in or an attempt at forced entry, nor had the college been the target of any organized burglaries before that time. This has given rise to other theories that some kind of grudge or dispute between coworkers led to Wally's death. After all, there was one member of the security team that refused to take a polygraph test, and if you ask me, that's probably the most suspicious thing about this entire case. It's also really curious that there was no CCTV footage of the attack. Another member of the security team would have known where the cameras were at and therefore where the best place to attack Wally would be. Yet Wally was a very popular member of the team, so what could he have done to incur someone's anger in such a way is almost totally beyond me. In the words of Marianne Zarchevsky, Wally's widow, I just want to ask them why. Why didn't you just leave? Why did you have to hurt him? And perhaps the most tragic thing I've learned about the events surrounding Wally's death is that just a few months before he was murdered, the head of campus security had been asking the college to pony up the cash to hire some actual trained, armed police officers. Leo Tarian, head of security, has pretty much openly admitted that it was hideously unfair to put untrained and unprepared people in a situation that might lead to encounters with armed and violent criminals. But he also puts it out there that the college was vehemently against the hiring of armed off-duty officers, on the grounds that it would create a negative atmosphere on campus by frightening the students. After Wally's death, Wesleyan College not only hired an off-duty officer but offered a $25,000 reward out of their own pocket for any information leading to the identification and arrest of Officer Wally's killer. A shadow box containing a photo of Wally, his now retired badge, and a medal now hangs in the Wesleyan security office, with the box bearing the inscription, "For the ultimate sacrifice." But as sad and tragic as the whole thing is, it pales in comparison to the terrifying idea that a man could be killed in such a brutal fashion while at work, with one of his own colleagues as perhaps the main suspect, and that still, to this day, not a single person has been charged or convicted over his murder. We can only hope that Wally and his widow managed to find some measure of peace.